So look, the other day we talked about these Columbia protests. You have pro-Palestine students who are out there and making their voices heard. They're trying to get Columbia to divest from Israel. They're also, of course, standing up and protesting the ongoing genocide and ethnic cleansing in Gaza. Now, the other day when we talked about this, you know, I just put it as part of a bigger Israel segment, because in my mind, that's where it belongs. We could talk about the protesting of the genocide in the broader context of the genocide and talk about all the updates, everything the IDF is doing, all the new atrocities that are coming out. That's where I put it. But what I couldn't foresee is just how deranged our media is, where protesting college kids have become a bigger story, a bigger scandal, a bigger outrage than new mass graves found in Gaza. But that's where we are. The media is absolutely melting down over a bunch of college kids camping on a lawn and saying, hey, divest from Israel and stop the genocide. Okay, so Breaking Point's put together this little compilation here of the media's coverage of this. And woo! Just get ready. Just get ready. There's so much to say about all this. By the way, this guy right here, I think, is Robert Kraft. He's a billionaire or multimillionaire, I don't remember. And he came out and said, I'm not giving any more money to Columbia. I don't recognize them now because they're not cracking down hard enough on these protesters. By the way, they sent in the NYPD to crack down on the peaceful protesters. What more did you want? First of all, they shouldn't have sent the NYPD. This is called the First Amendment. This is called free speech. This is called freedom to protest. But they sent in the NYPD. What did you want them to do? Start shooting bazookas at the students? What did you want? Suspend all the students. Let's stop playing this game. Then just come out and acknowledge I'm against free speech. I'm against free protest because I disagree on the substance of what these kids are saying. Just come out and say that. Don't tap dance around it. Don't drape it in fake virtue. And by the way, having like a billionaire threaten funding of the colleges, that almost exposes the problem perfectly. So now they got to kowtow to these billionaire donors because your feelings are hurt because you're a snowflake. So now you want to do cancel culture of people who are just speaking their mind in what's supposed to be a democracy? Fuck off. All right, let's get started. I know I'm talking too much already. Let's dive into this.
Professors and students within the university who say things that I think cross the line, and there should be accountability.
By the way, look at the banner on CNN. Robert Kraft condemns anti-Semitism at Columbia University. Please, examples. I am waiting to hear. What are your examples of anti-Semitism? I got all day, homie. Here, you guys see if you hear any evidence.
Free speech, say whatever you want, but pay the consequences and don't have your face covered.
Free speech, say whatever you want, but, anytime that word comes after, I believe in free speech. But, so now this part of the sentence is going to override that last part of the sentence. The part where you said you believed in free speech, the next part is going to be like, and that's why I don't believe in free speech. Fuck off.
I don't think that should be allowed.
These are not protesters. These are violent hate mongers. The things that are coming out of their mouth, burn down Tel Aviv, genocide. October 7th, we did.
That guy, Barack Ravid, who works for Axios, tweeted a video where they say, oh, look, these are the protesters. And in the video, they chant something and it ends with, burn Tel Aviv. But then he deleted the tweet. And so I'm sitting there thinking, did a group of hundreds of college kids really chant burn down Tel Aviv? Or is this some fucking massive misinformation and people are lying on purpose? And so then he realized he had to delete the tweet when he found out it wasn't true. Right? Okay, let's be honest here. The real issue is when these kids say, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. They have a problem with that. And they also have a problem with intifada. And their interpretation when the kids say that is, you're calling for genocide of all Jews. That's what they say. That's what they believe. Doesn't matter how many times you point out, hey, why don't you go talk to the people who are saying this and ask them what they really believe by from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Usually they say, you ask them, I know, I've done it. Usually they say, I mean a one-state, democratic, secular state in the region that protects everybody's rights, Israelis and Palestinians alike. One state, democratic solution. That's what they mean when they say, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Not, let's genocide Jews. Obviously they don't mean that. For you to think for even a second they might mean that, that's absurd. You got some fucking 21-year-old kid who lives in Burbank, who goes to this expensive college with pink hair. They're in agreement with like the fucking Hamas spokesperson. That's what you think? It's like you're not even trying to understand where people are coming from. And by the way, we're deep into a genocide now. Of course fucking people are going to be pissed the fuck off about that because it's our money and our weapons going and supporting it. And by the way, even on the intifada point, they think it's such intifada. Intifada is by definition violent. Let's break this down a little bit. Have there been intifadas that have been violent and violent against civilians? Yes, there has. But to say intifada, that word just means uprising. You can mean uprising as in, hey, 2018, Great March or Return, totally peaceful, totally nonviolent, Palestinians trying to get their rights. You can mean it that way. You can mean it in the context of Palestinians have a right to defend themselves against an ongoing ethnic cleansing and a genocide. They have a right to self-defense. And when you say intifada, of course you can mean I want an uprising against legitimate military targets. And if people have a problem with that, then flip it on them and say, well, hold on now. Do Palestinians not have a right to defend themselves? Make them answer that. Because everybody loves to crow from the rooftop, Israel's right to defend themselves. Israel's right to defend themselves. Do Palestinians have a right to defend themselves against the wanton aggression that the IDF is doing, killing 92% civilians, including 15,000 children and 9,000 women? It's all fake outrage. Fake. This is so fucking fake, I can't stand it. They know that a group of 300 college kids are not out there like, Viva la Hamas! They know that's the game. But they smear him as that anyway.
We'll do it 10 times, we'll do it 100 times, we'll do it 1,000 times, we'll do it 10,000 times. This is an atrocity, and I'm going to say the quadruped out loud. If there was any group spewing hate and violence against any other group, Asians, blacks, Hispanics, gays, it would be shut down. And this needs to be shut down immediately because, and once again, those groups are back. Those tents are back up. And this cannot go unanswered. It's very simple. And, you know, there's a continuum of protesters. There's a heinous anti-violent ones that spewing hatred, spewing death, if you will. And then there's the less malignant that say ceasefire. But even ceasefire doesn't have the word peace in it.
This motherfucker has a job commenting on politics. He is outraged and aggrieved that students are saying, ceasefire now. These people have lost their fucking minds. They've lost their fucking minds. Look, you guys know me. I am one to always assume good intent among those who disagree with me. I will take what they say at face value and respond to that. But as I pointed out on this particular issue previously, I'm having a hard time not coming to the inevitable conclusion that all of these idiots crowing in the media are just dishonest liars. Because you know why these students are out there. You know they want to divest from Israel, which makes perfect sense. It would be like divesting from South Africa during the heart of apartheid. That makes perfect sense. That's perfectly reasonable. And they want to stop the U.S. arming and funding a fucking genocide where 41,000 Palestinians have been killed. And now 2 million out of 2.3 million Gazans are homeless. And they're pretending this is a hate rally. No, you have the hateful position because you are implying what's going on with Israel and the IDF is totally fine. They're just defending themselves. They're just defending themselves. You have to sit down and accept that our money and our weapons are funding a genocide. You tell me who's hateful in that scenario.
You hear the word peace because this side doesn't want peace. It wants a jihad. And this is not pro-Palestinian, this is anti-Israel, and anti-Israel is a misnomer because it's really anti-Jew.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's anti-Semitic. Some of the leaders in these groups protesting Israel and standing up for Palestinian rights, some of the leaders are Jewish. And you are erasing them.
Even go further. It's not almost anti-Semitism, it is anti-Semitism.
I'm going to jump out of the fucking window, man. I'm going to jump out of the window. I'm going to shove my dick in a meat grinder. I'm going to... How long are we into the fucking genocide? How deep are we into this genocide? 41,000 dead Palestinians, 15,000 of them dead kids. And these motherfuckers are bitching and moaning and crying and morally outraged over a bunch of college kids protesting, saying stop the genocide and divest from Israel. You guys are fucking liars and fucking dishonest. Either that or your moral meter is totally broken. Just completely and utterly shattered in 1,000 different ways. By the way, the very, very few instances of violence that they point to, turns out one of them was just totally debunked. They point to one thing that like didn't even happen on a college campus. It wasn't on the college campus. Some Israel supporter got punched. But again, wasn't on the college campus. Had nothing to do with these particular protesters, right? And the other one is something that was just debunked by video. This girl came out and said, I got poked in the eye with a Palestinian flag on purpose. Really? Weird. Her eye looks perfectly fine, and on the video, there's no way in hell it was a purposeful poking in the eye. The flag barely grazed her. And she made a mountain out of a molehill to try to garner sympathy and smear the protesters as violent. I'm losing it, y'all. I'm losing it. I'm having a hard time fucking containing myself watching this. This is the most dishonest shit I think I've ever seen.
This is something that is on display right now, but the sort of roots of this kind of devolving from A to B go back millennia. And this is something, the roots of anti-Semitism that pop up in societies that frankly tend to be a canary in the coal mine for a society and democracy in this case that is in a lot of trouble. It is, I like to look at this and replace Jews with any other minority group here. And what would the entire country be doing? They would be outraged, rightly so.
So obviously, as
again, total erasure of the fact that you have a lot of Jews leading these peace movements, leading these protests. By the way, Colombia was one of the first to ban Jewish Voice for Peace. They banned them. They banned them early on. In like mid-October or something. They banned them. Did she come out and say that's anti-Semitic of Colombia to ban Jewish Voice for Peace? These are Jews and you're trying to muzzle them. You're trying to silence them. You're trying to take away their voice. You're trying to take away their free speech. No, she didn't do that. She's just lying about the protesters and why they're doing what they're doing. Again, they're not even trying, guys. They're not even trying. Hey, what's the purpose of what they're doing? Not even trying. They're just lying. They're just liars.
protest is an important part of being an American, free speech is an important part of being an American. Where is the line? For example, I've seen video of somebody at the Gaza encampment at Columbia standing up and talking about how great October 7th Hamas attacks on Israel was and calling the Hamas terrorists, calling them freedom fighters. Is that hate speech or is that protected free speech? Where do you come down on that?
And that is, believe it or not, as vile as it could be, because Hamas should be destroyed from the actions they did on October 7th and other actions. But that does not fall into a crime. If someone makes a comment that they want to join a terrorist organization, that's going to come under investigation. But the commissioner of legal matters at the New York City Police Department is going to really break this down for New Yorkers.
He has to remind Jake Tapper that the First Amendment is a thing. He has to remind him. And by the way, they're like, hey, but look, we'll investigate, though. You'll investigate what? You'll investigate what? By the way, what Jake Tapper referred to there, I didn't see. I looked for all this stuff. I didn't see a video on that. If you saw it, send it to me. If somebody's actually out there like, hooray, October 7th, of course, that should be condemned. No doubt about it. But what I've seen is people, again, trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. One of the things that they were so pissed off about, and that guy Shea Davide is losing his mind over, is there was a group of Zionists waving a bunch of Israeli flags. And you had one person wearing a keffiyeh, and holding up a sign pointing at them saying, Al-Qassam's next target. That's the military wing of Hamas. That's the thing that I saw that everybody was making the biggest deal out of. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think that this person actually has a direct line to Hamas and that, like, these people are going to get targeted? Do you think that's what's going on there? Or do you think this is somebody making a very edgy joke saying, yeah, look at these assholes. This is Hamas's next target. What do you think it is? And again, we can play this game all day long, right? Oh my God, I found 3 instances of things that were slightly wrong at these protests. I guess they're all anti-Semitic. I guess this is all hate speech, and I guess we should shut it all down. Right? We could play this game with fucking any protest about any issue. That's what we can do. But that would be dishonest. None of these people actually believe that the hundreds or thousands of students out there protesting, that they're all like, rah, rah, Hamas, rah, rah, Hezbollah, glory to our fighters in Al-Qassam. They know that that's not their stance. They know that the reason they're doing this is university divest from Israel and stop the genocide. They know. But they're not going to engage on that because they lose that argument 10 out of 10 times. So you just smear the whole protest movement and forget that free speech is a thing and exists. And even if people are saying things that are wrong, it's acceptable. That's why we had the Supreme Court case from Skokie, Illinois, about how even Nazis saying Nazi shit were legally allowed to protest through a majority Jewish town. Now, those people were actually scumbags, but they're legally allowed to do it. But instead, now we all forget that. We all forget how the United States works, how the First Amendment works, and we define the entire movement by the fringe of bad people or the few bad instances you could point to. Okay, I got to give you more on this. Senator Tom Cotton and Josh Hawley are demanding President Joe Biden unleash the full force of the state's National Guard to suppress pro-Palestinian student protests at Columbia University. So again, the same assholes that pretended they're all about free speech, they're all about free protest in the First Amendment, they flip on a fucking dime the second they disagree with the speech. That's what this is. They can't even make an argument that 1% of these protesters are violent, but they're saying send in the National Guard and crack skulls and ban them from exercising their First Amendment rights. These guys are authoritarian scumbags and are more than happy to censor when the issue is Israel. Okay, this sounds like a joke. This is in the Wall Street Journal. Who's behind the anti-Israel protests? Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and others are grooming activists in the U.S. and across the West. They cannot fathom that maybe these students have seen dozens of videos of babies being pulled out from underneath rubble of buildings that were bombed, and they have a moral issue with that. They can't fathom that young people look at the death toll of 15,000 kids, 9,000 women, 36,000 civilians. They look at that and they go, man, my money and our weapons are going to the country doing this. That should stop. They can't fathom that young people would react like that. So what do? I don't know. These activists are a front group for Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. Yeah. The big Houthi lobby is paying these protesters. The big Hezbollah lobby is paying these protesters. What fucking planet do you live on? And by the way, the same people making these accusations against the protesters, they're all funded by AIPAC. They're all funded by the Israel lobby. You really want to have a conversation about, big money funding protest movements and astroturfing and funding politicians? You do not want to have that conversation. I guarantee you 10 out of 10 times you're going to lose that. Because obviously the big money comes from Israel and Saudi Arabia and multinational corporations and billionaires. These are just kids with a conscience. God fucking damn it. Yeah, it's Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis are behind the anti-Israel protests. It can't just be that people are fucking disgusted by witnessing Israel carpet bomb children on a daily basis and do a total medieval siege on Gaza where they starve millions of people. Ugh. All right, so this guy, Shea Davide, is completely fucking unhinged. A total little petty authoritarian, censorious freak. He's been raging against the protesters. He He works at Columbia, and he's feeding into this notion of like, the Jewish students there are unsafe. The only Jewish students that are unsafe are leading the pro-Palestine movement. And they're not safe because of assholes like you who are trying to get them suspended and trying to have the NYPD crack their fucking skulls. You absolute charlatan fraud. So here he is giving a speech. This speaks for itself. Oh, damn it. I only have the 3-minute video of the 3-second video of this. There's a longer one. It's completely unhinged. But this part is really sums up how dishonest this whole conversation is.
Right now, we are not okay.
We are not okay. And he's doing this thing about how, Jewish students aren't safe. Now, remember, when he says that, what he means is people who are pro-Israel, Zionists, are not safe. Well, it looks to me like the NYPD is cracking the skulls of the pro-Palestine people and arresting the pro-Palestine people. They're not arresting the Zionists. So you're lying. They're trying to make it seem like this is some sort of a lynch mob about to do a pogrom if you let them protest. Again, totally dishonest. All right. NYPD is now mass arresting NYU student protesters and faculty. By the way, in a couple of instances, the faculty at these various colleges and universities, because now the protests have spread, the faculties have come out to defend their students. And in some instances, the cops are arresting now the protesters and the faculty. After more than 100 students from Barnard College and Columbia University were arrested at an encampment calling for the school to divest from Israel amid the country's deadly assault on Gaza, similar encampments have begun across the United States. So there's a snowball effect. There's a little bit of a backlash here because with Columbia cracking down, a bunch of people stood in solidarity, and the next day there were even more people there. Why? Because you can't hide the truth. You can't hide the real reason why these people are doing this, and you guys are coming across as smear merchants, because you are. Just in, Columbia University has announced classes will be remote the rest of the year as anti-Israel protests rock the school. There are now growing calls for tuition refunds for the $70K a year college now that it has practically turned into an online school. Quote, it's vital that teaching and learning continue during this time. We recognize conditions vary across our campuses and thus are issuing the following guidelines, the school said while making the announcement. Okay. Could you imagine? Instead of letting the students speak their mind, have a conscience, protest, by the way, the students are, of course, correct, instead, shut it all down. We're going to do online classes. How would you feel if you were going to Columbia in this instance and the school did this? How would you feel if you're the parent and your kid's going there and now they got to do the rest of the classes online? This is free speech. This is free protest. They're allowed to do this. They should be allowed to do this. They're on the right side of history. And there's a colossal overreaction. New York University barricaded Cadman Plaza where pro-Palestinian demonstrators had gathered the previous day before being dispersed and arrested to deter them from reconvening for future protests. Again, tell me who's unsafe. Tell me who's, getting cracked down on. Please. I'd love to hear this. And finally, we got this. New 28 unions representing tens of thousands of workers are demanding the immediate reinstatement of all student and student workers disciplined for pro-Palestine protests and the end to the repression of protest on Columbia's campus. Shout out to those unions, man. Standing with the students who are doing the right thing. Guys, yet again, I want to reiterate this. This segment has gone way too long, but I have to say this. I've never seen such fake, dishonest outrage, and I've never seen so many grotesque lies about students who are protesting because they want to divest from Israel, which is a country doing an ethnic cleansing and a genocide. They want to divest from Israel. That's what they want to do. And they want to stop the genocide. And they're getting smeared. They're called Hamas-funded, Hezbollah-funded, Houthi-funded. They're called anti-Semites. They're called every name in the book, all because they have a conscience. This is exactly like the anti-Vietnam War protests. This is exactly like the anti-Iraq War protests. Everybody who was right in the moment was portrayed as the enemy. History repeats itself. But we're onto it. They're not going to get this one by us. Everybody can see right through it. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.